dealt with last year?
Yeah, I think it was a good, first morning, I guess, of time on track. We were pretty focused on just running by ourselves, try to get a good understanding of what is different from last year to this year. See if we felt that we had found the speed that was expected. We kind of had 3 different specifications of cars running around today, and I'm sure there's more to be coming, at least within our team. But I thought it was, it was a positive morning. The car felt good. Chassis balance was really nice to drive. So the changes that were made there in the off season, I think, were a positive. I wish that we had time, like most, I think, to get into race running, because I really wanted to see, before May, like what do we have, what are we going to come back with in that regard, but also just understand how well the car pulls up and sucks up and tows, because that's where we really struggled the last few years. And so that being said, on our own it feels good, and the pace seemed decent. So let's see.
Just one more question. Again, we'll open it up for questions in person. Alyssa has a microphone, and for those of you joining us on Zoom, we'll take a couple questions as well. But just generally speaking, I mean, where do you even the end of last year into this now? If there's something you could circle, hey, this happened, this is a good change for this team, this has put us on the right trajectory, what would that be?
Well, it depends on the area. The best thing that happened to the team was the worst thing that happened to the team, which was me not qualifying. And I said before, I'll say it again, that I think me not qualifying was the best thing that could have happened versus anybody else, because it clearly rings home for my dad and everybody else. Not saying it doesn't matter on any of the others, but it got serious in a hurry, and that made us really lock in and focus on fixing a lot of items, particularly when it came to Indy. And I'll just say, like, these are our struggles of last year, are things that I had said to the team for years. Like, it wasn't that we all of a sudden were slow. We were getting slow. Like, we were falling behind for the years prior, but it's a struggle when in the years prior you had won Indy and you had finished, 2021 was looking extremely good on our car to certainly we were in the catbird seat. I think anybody can say that. We needed one more pit stop. Everybody else needed 2. It's a pretty simple math equation that we were looking good in 2021. So, when you have that sort of results, like, oh, no, you guys are fine. Well, the reality was we were never that fast. In 2020, we didn't qualify in a super speedway trim like an ordinary year you would have. 2021, we were pretty average, frankly. And in the race, we kind of moved our way forward through strategy, et cetera. So last year, not qualifying was a real shot to, like, hey, we are really far behind and we need to get serious about this in a hurry. And it allowed the owners to dig in, because I don't think many of the issues were issues that they were, frankly, that aware of. I mean, they know what our budgets are, they know what we spend, and we spend everything we could, right? I mean, anything that was requested was always done. But the realities were the things that we were spending on weren't the right things. And I don't know that they had the awareness of that fully. And I think last year brought a severe intensity and focus to what was going on, and brought the change that was necessary. So when it comes to Indy, I would say that moment. On the road courses and street courses, I still think we actually have a lot to gain. I feel like, early in the season, what we've seen here is, I think there's a couple of other teams that have taken some big steps forward. And so while we have as well, I think we've got some speed to be found in all aspects. And so we'll see how we go out to Long Beach next week, and we'll see how that is for us.
I was going to say, you'll find out quick with Long Beach and Barber, and then back here on the road course. So
it's going to happen in a hurry now. So we'll figure it out. And Indy GP, of course, I feel good. I mean, I can't seem to think that much is going to have changed from last year. We should be pretty strong.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and open up for questions. Alyssa, we'll start here with Tony Donahue.
We talked about this earlier today. Can you elaborate a little bit more on just what you feel inside the car that makes you know that this is different than what I had last year?
Yeah, a lot of it is you know, when you are in here, you're man and machine, you're one, you know, together, and you realize, you know, there's small things that indicate performance and you know, increase. And for me, the way that the car accelerated today off the corner, the gears in which you were able to hold, even when the car would say dip down to an RPM range that's below where I wanted to be, and traditionally, I'd have to downshift in order to build speed down the next straight. And today was the first time in a while I'd start to see speed. RPMs would start to come up, like the car was responding well to it. And then the other thing was just, you know, for me, when I'd get a sniff of a toe today, and I mean like 7-8 seconds, so entire front straight, the speed would pick up. And last year we would, for most drivers, they're probably thinking, yeah, that's obvious, that's the way it is. But last year, that's not the way an RLL car was. We would probably fall further behind. And today we had a couple of times at that sort of gap where, you know, suddenly on my own I'm running 220.6, 220, and all of a sudden it's 21.2, 21.3, and picking up as the run went on. And so that's just a good indication. I mean, those are things that we didn't have last year. And so, as I said, it's a shame not to get a little bit of race running, because I would have liked to see it with the heaviest downforce we could put on, just to see where we are competitiveness. But it was nice to at least feel that a little.
And then real quick, the importance and how happy you are that Takuma Sato's back with the team. A lot of experience there. You guys ran really well together in 2020. Good friends. Just the importance of having that two-time Indianapolis 500 winner back on the team.
Well, we need the experience. And, you know, I think if we hurt in one area last year, it was, you know, really a lack of a lot of experience, right? A lot of depth. And so to bring Takuma back, he's a guy who's clearly very good here, having won twice, chance for a third and 12. You know, he's a guy who's run up front here consistently, but also he's been with some good teams. And, you know, most recently with Ganassi last year. So he knows, you know, he knows what it should feel like. And, you know, I just talked about the way that a car responds to the toe. Like it's going to be fresh on his mind what that car, you know, did for him last year, and then where we stand today. And so I hope, you know, Mother Nature doesn't look good to us tomorrow, but I hope that we, you know, there's magic that we can get a little bit of running, because I really would like to get Takuma's feedback more than anything. I mean, today he just didn't get to do many laps. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what he has to say.
Kurt?
Brack just here on vacation today, or does he have a helping role?
Yeah, he's we were joking last night at dinner that the 11 to 1 session was a refresher for he and Dad. They were going to get back out there and see what they could do. So, but, you know, Kenny, first off, Kenny's been, as everybody knows, very, very close to our family since he, you know, retired. Remain very close. I hear from Kenny a lot. But it's great to have him back in a role in which he's integrated in the team. He's listening to all that's going on. I just talked, you know, with Tony to answer Tony's question about experience and what that means. Well, Kenny has a lot of experience, and he's one here, right? So it's important, you know, to have somebody like that, particularly for the younger guys. But it's also nice for me to have somebody to bounce ideas off of and relate to. And so I'm happy to have Kenny back. He'll be back here in May with us, and I look forward to it. I mean, I'd love to have Kenny around more, quite frankly. I think, you know, he's a guy who truly understands, you know, what the driver's position is, understands, you know, what all that entails. And, you know, as he once told me, you know, the driver is the most influential part of an entire team, because you literally and figuratively sit in the center of everything. And so everything revolves around you, whether it's the mechanics, whether it's the engineering, the team management, the team owners. You know, they're all directly connected constantly to the driver, and the driver gets to see it all, experience it all. And so he's lived that, he's seen that, and hopefully he can have a really positive impact on what we do going forward.
Anyone else? Follow up here, and then we'll take 2 questions off Zoom.
So obviously coming off of last year with what happened, having to deal with the emotions of that brief period of knowing that you wouldn't be in the race, do you find yourself now having a newfound appreciation for just being able to qualify for the race, let alone be a contender for the win coming into this year?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's Kenny, Dad, and I had this talk at dinner last night. I mean, you know, and I said it last year. I mean, Indy is not. It's not a place that is given. It's earned. And you go through that roller coaster of emotions, and you know, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows. That's racing in general, but Indy magnifies all of that. But it is a place that will test every bit of you. And you know, as tough as it was, you know, I fully believe that you should have to qualify for the Indy 500. That should be a standard thing. And this year we're going to have to go out there and try again. And, you know, after last year, I told a few people, but the first voicemail, when I got back to my phone, literally the first phone call and voicemail I had was from Al Unser Jr. And it meant the world to me. In fact, if I pulled up my phone right now, it's one of the few voicemails that I have not deleted, you know, for the last year, because he's a guy who's experienced it. He's been at the highs, he's been at the lows, and that's what makes you in the end. And so for me, this is a year that I need to, you know, we as a team need to respond as well as possible, and have a good month of May, and I fully expect that we will.
Let's take two off Zoom. Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Hi, Nate. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave. Thanks. Grant, following up on what you said about Takuma, on the Peacock interview, you were saying that Takuma has the most advanced car, you're in the middle, and Christian and Pietro are one step behind. Can you kind of elaborate on that, like what that means, that he's the most advanced car? And is that partially because even though he's the one-off, he's the most successful guy at the Speedway? Is that the thinking there?
No. It's just with our development, what we have. And Nate, what that comes down to is IndyCar right now has a serious issue with parts, and parts shortages. And so my car today is not my Indy 500 car. It's my Long Beach car. You know, it was my hybrid test car last week. It was, you know, whatever. Whereas Takuma's car has been at the shop for this sustained period of time, which allows it to get a little further ahead. We have a major part shortage with, you know, the bell housings, gearboxes, a lot of the new hybrid componentry that's not being used with a hybrid currently. And so we simply have not had a lot of spares to be able to take to prep Indy 500 stuff. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so a lot of that, you know, his stuff, and he also has the Indy race motor. All of the part-time drivers today would have their Indy month of May motors in, which I'm sure for both manufacturers is a step ahead. It's an evolution, and so you know, we don't have that. So that's really what it comes down to. It's not an experience thing or anything else. It was literally parts, just where we could get them and how it worked. And that's why Friday, you know, I don't know the final decision, but if it rains out tomorrow, I don't know if they'll run or not. But if you run Friday, it's going to make lives very, very hard for the teams, because my car, Christian's, you know, Pietro's, everybody's car's got to be turned around to race next week, and you have a very short period of time before those trucks need to leave. So it just comes down to parts at this time.
Gotcha. And one more follow-up. You'd mentioned that like the philosophy wasn't necessarily a new approach for you guys. It was just going back to there's no substitute for a fast race car. It's just about building fast race cars again for Indy. Like, did something kind of get lost there? I mean, that seems like such a basic elementary sort of thing. Did you know, that kind of go by the wayside when you guys lost your way in 22 and 23, where you just weren't focusing on let's build fast race cars and that's the be all end all?
Yeah. So, you know, here's the deal. We've always focused on it, but there's a lot of question marks in this, and there's a lot of elements that add up to equal a fast race car. I don't think it comes down to saying, oh, RLL had, you know, poor build quality in their race cars. That's not accurate. I think Rocket would tell you that. He sees them, right? He sees every team, and I think he would say that the RLL cars are some of the nicest. But there's a lot of intricacies in the way that these things are built. There's a lot of things that make a massive difference to the performance of a race car. And when you get behind in certain areas, or you go too far in certain areas that you thought was a positive development, but in fact it is not, or is a negative development, Those are things that need to be identified. And sometimes when you just kind of get stuck in this mentality of going down this path, going further, you just think more and more and more it's going to get better, better, better. Well, the reality is that's not necessarily true. And I think that's what hurt us in the past. Is, as I said, it wasn't, sitting there and going, oh, we're just not going to build fast race cars. It's not going to be the focus. No, we've always paid a lot of attention to detail on our build qualities and items like that. But there's a lot of componentry that makes a big difference. And unfortunately, certain areas of that componentry was not maximized or anywhere near maximized. As difficult as that is, I can't say much more. But that's what it comes down to.
Got it. Thanks, Graham. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nate. One more, Archie O'Reilly from Dive Bomb Motorsport Magazine across the Atlantic. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, Graham. I guess just what are the emotions coming back to the IMS Oval after last year, and what are your confidence levels like, and I guess your motivation heading into this year's event as well?
Well, I mean, I feel very confident here. I mean, you've got to come in here with the belief that you can win. I firmly believe if you come to the Indy 500 just to compete in it, you shouldn't be here. It's just like if you're going to go race in the Daytona 500 just to do it, or Daytona 24-hour, or Sebring 12-hour Le Mans. There's no point. It's not fun if you don't have a chance to win. That's the reality. And so for me, I feel really, really good about where we're at. As I just talked about with Nate, where we've developed to, I think we've got, some strong opportunities ahead of us. And I'm excited to get back for May. For me, this is circled on the schedule every year. But as all of you guys can imagine, this race, for me, it means a lot more than it did, maybe ever before. To have the opportunity to just get back out here and try to qualify and put ourselves in a really good place, I think is going to be key. And I think the team's done a great job. So we'll see. But I can assure you that the feeling at the end of today, even after 5 or 6 runs versus where we were after the first day of the spring test here, is a very different vibe within the team. And I hope that will keep a positive outlook as we go into May.
And just harking back to what you were saying about Takuma, can you just maybe weigh up the benefits of having him in a 4th car as opposed to just having maybe a more streamlined 3-car operation?
Well, I can't speak to that as much as maybe Dad or Steve or Mike or somebody. But I think that to run a 4th car here this year was going to have to be somebody like Takuma. I don't think they would have done it just to have a 4th. I think we've learned our lesson in that regard. And when the opportunity started to come up with Takuma, I don't know, a handful of months ago was probably the first rumbling I heard of it. It made a lot of sense. Takuma has a great relationship with Eddie Jones, who's his engineer. Eddie's worked with Takuma and I back and forth for, 7-8 years now. So Eddie and Takuma have got a lot of trust and faith in each other and what they can do. A lot of the guys within the team know Takuma well. A bunch of them won it with Takuma. And so he was the right fit. I'm not sure that RLL would have done it otherwise, nor am I sure that Honda would have done it otherwise. I think that's a critical part too. Engines are definitely at a premium right now. There's a reason there's not 40 cars in the field, and it's not because there's not interest. Getting engines is hard right now. But again, Takuma was a great fit for us, and I'm excited to have him. One of the last times we were together here is when we finished 1st and 3rd. And, I think he's going to be a great asset for us in May.
Thank you, Graham. Cheers, Dave.
Thanks, Archie. Anybody else in person? Thanks for hanging out with us for a few minutes before you take off. Thank you. Once again, Kyle Larson will be on his way if he's not already. So stand by for Kyle Larson. Okay, wrapping up again, day one of the Indy 500 Open Test here at the World Capital of Racing. We're joined now by the driver of the number 17, HendrickCars.com, Arrow McLaren Chevrolet, none other than Kyle Larson. Day one, kind of in the books. I got rain shortened and whatnot. But for the time you were out there, what'd you think?
Yeah, it was a good day. Good to, yeah, like you said, you didn't get a ton of laps, or at least laps in a pack or anything like that. But, it was still good for the amount that I got in something, just to visually kind of see what that looked like, and you'll feel the runs and all of that. It was good. So, yeah, I feel like for what I needed to learn and check off my list, I thought it was a successful day. And, yeah, hopefully the weather could get better for tomorrow, and you check some more things off.
How you do with rain dances and that sort of thing? Can you keep the weather away from us for some reason?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like rain follows NASCAR, so it's probably my fault.
Oh, this is
why
your
it rains
fault
here.
then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, interesting. We'll begin with questions in person. I know there's some off of Zoom as well, so those of you joining us virtually, stand by for that. Start here in the front row. Bruce Martin. Hi, Bruce.
Is it almost a little bit like a tease that, you were going to have all this track time, supposedly, and you really weren't able to get that much? So in some ways, how do you balance that? Because there could have been a lot done today if the weather had cooperated.
Honestly, I kind of feel the opposite about it, because I feel like I've been checking the weather for a week, and it's looked worse than, like I wasn't expecting to get on track at all. So, no, I feel like I've gotten more out of this week than I anticipated getting. So, no, I was happy to get the solid couple hours that we got in the morning, and yeah, so I would rather have gotten something rather than nothing.
So do you look at tomorrow as, it looks pretty grim tomorrow, so if you do get on track, it would be bonus time?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, definitely. It's any laps is good for me. Any laps is bonus at this point. So, yeah, I just hope that it gets better, and I doubt it, but we'll see.
I like your attitude, though. Stay optimistic with us. Bruce? I'm sorry, where's the microphone? Go ahead in the back. Sorry.
Noah Carmichael, Mighty Mac. So obviously, with the schedule that you have, any track time you need is good for you, obviously. With the obvious, no pun intended, damper on the weather, losing you possibly 2.5 days of track time, how much does that change for you with trying to prepare for this race, knowing that you need as much as you can get, and obviously with the weather, that takes away a big part of the opening session to help you get ready for May?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a couple ways you could probably look at it. I think laps would be great. I would obviously like more laps, but I think in conditions like this, I don't know how well of a representation it would be for the month of May, especially race day. So, maybe it's best that I don't get that many laps, this week, because, then I would have a false sense of what's real and what's coming, in a month. So it doesn't, I won't be sad if we don't get laps tomorrow, just because I know that the conditions aren't hopefully going to be anything like what it will be in May. So, yeah, I think there will be a lot more to learn once we really get into the 2 weeks that we're on track here.
Let's go, Tony, and then we'll take one or two off Zoom. Go ahead, Tony.
Probably dating back to October as well when you're out here. It's been probably information overload. Everybody's giving you some advice. You got TK up there. What is something that has surprised you out on the track that you've had to adjust to, and what's something that maybe has came a little bit more natural than what you expected?
I don't know. I don't think anything's quite real out there in practice, like to what I'll experience in the race. I think I'm going to be overloaded during the race of trying to process information, or not only information, just learning during the race. But for practice, like the few laps I got in the second session, like there was a lot of like checking up for whatever reason, like getting in the corner, and I think that kind of helped me realize that I need to look further ahead than the one car that's in front of me. I think I was like 4th or 5th in line at that point, and I probably needed to look, a couple more cars in front of that person. and when I say that person, also, like, I don't know who I'm out there around, because like in a stock car, somebody turns the corner, you can see their door number, or there's a number on their back bumper. Like, I've got no clue who I'm out there around and learning off of. So that was surprising. Like, I thought it'd be easier to know who is out there around me, but yeah, it's difficult. But and then I don't know, just the cars to me feel very similar to a stock car in a way. Like, everything that I feel out there is like what I would expect from a 9 a.m. practice session in a stock car at the Brickyard 400. Like, cool conditions, got grip, all that. So it doesn't, although, we wouldn't be running around here wide open in a stock car, like the way that the tires feel and all that, feels relatively similar.
Microphone, Alyssa, up here in the front. While that happens, I'm curious about your thoughts about ROP last year, the session you had at Phoenix Raceway, and now this experience. Have you been able to build on one another, or are each one of them kind of separate in its own way?
No, I think for sure, doing I wish it wasn't so spread out. Like, I wish I didn't do it in October and then in February and then in April. Like, I wish it was days apart or weeks apart. Yeah. But I think had I had to do the ROP today, like, I would have been stressed out and like really nervous and just not able to focus on something or anything. So having it spread out like helped me kind of take my time with like, all right, like I wanted to feel the car at the ROP and just feel what like little stuff, steering wheel felt like, visually, like what all that felt like. I'm like, okay, that was good. Then you go to Phoenix, like, okay, now I want to feel like the car and like it's slipping and moving and work on ins and out of pit stalls and stuff, and that was good for that test. And then now, like today, I could move on to the next thing. Like, okay, now what's it look like around cars? How does what I've learned in the past translate to now being behind cars? Where I think had the weather had been good today, like I'd have been stressed out about the ROP and like what that was going to look like. And then, okay, now you passed that. Now you got to go out there and like run wide open behind somebody. Like, I don't know if mentally I'd be ready for that. So I'm fortunate that I was able to do the ROP last year and then, be allowed to run that little bit at Phoenix for sure. I think it's definitely going to help.
Go ahead, Lucille. Then we'll take a couple off Zoom.
When Jimmy Johnson was in our series, he was pretty honest about the differences, going from the NASCAR car to, the Cup car to the Indy car. Did you talk with Jimmy at all before you came out here and did this, or?
Just briefly, I think a few months ago, he just said I was gonna have a blast. Honestly, really, I've tried not to ask too many questions to people. Like, I feel like the way I've learned in the past is like I just need to learn on my own a little bit. And don't get me wrong, like I'm leaning on Tony Kanaan a lot and was in there while I was during the couple-hour break, like talking to my teammates and stuff. But I think to a point, like I just need to almost just feel things out on my own sometimes. And things are like Jimmy hasn't ran a next-gen car that much, and so like I don't know how well he could like compare to what I currently feel in a stock car and like how that would relate to this. So any information's good. I just don't want to overload myself with too much information from too many different people and just confuse myself. I think there's just although we're on track a lot, like it's a small window of time to learn. And I think if I overwhelm myself with too much info, I can get lost.
Okay.
Thanks, Lucille. Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Go ahead, Nate.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, Kyle, going back to what you were saying about this feeling like a 9 a.m. practice for the Brickyard, I think you said earlier, too, that the next gen has kind of made the transition similar to IndyCar. Can you elaborate on that? Like, how is the next gen, which obviously looks nothing like an IndyCar, how is it kind of like maybe more similar now that it feels like?
Yeah, I don't know exactly like what the components are that has made it feel like an IndyCar or whatever, or it's. And when I compare it to it, it's not exactly like it, but just the feel that I feel like in my hands with the front tires, not that I'm feeling the rear tires here, but like at Phoenix, just feeling the rear tires and kind of the lateral grip or lack there of grip, felt more similar to a cup car. Like the old style car, you could kind of slide it around more. It was a bit lazier feeling, where now the next gen cars are more of closer to like a sharper edge of having grip and then losing that grip, where the sensations that I get in the IndyCar is like, like at Phoenix, I got that feeling a lot. And then just the way that the front tires kind of load and you get to your hands to a point, and then like you can steer past the slip of the tire and all that. Like, just, I don't know, just something, maybe I'm feeling the sidewall or whatever, but it feels very similar to like what I would feel in my hands if I got tight or understeer in the middle of a corner. So yeah, it just feels, the next gen car, like I said, is just closer to the edge of grip and then losing grip, which I think the IndyCar is even sharper, but similar.
Got it. That makes sense. And then following up on one more thing you said in your Peacock interview, you were talking about how you wish you had the SMT data that you have in NASCAR. Like, what's one thing? Is it just knowing like where those guys were lifting in the corners, like throttle traces? And is there one driver in particular whose data you would love to see just based on what you've seen today?
Yeah, I would look at anybody's, honestly. There's not like one driver, and I think it's difficult, like, a place where it's so big and there's drafts and stuff. But like, if I could just go and look at, like when I'm in a drafting pack of like, okay, this is what I look like I'm doing. This is compared to what guys typically do. Like overlay on like the same corner. It's hard, like, I can't sit here and describe SMT to these people because they've never seen it, but you have. But I don't know, it'd just be nice to like see myself on top of it, or a ghost car on top of mine from somebody that I was running around, and like what that all looked like, where they're grabbing gears, where I'm grabbing gears, line shape, all that. Like everything about SMT would be amazing to look at and be so helpful for myself and for anybody who's a veteran in there. I think they would love to see it. But SMT is just a great tool that we have in NASCAR that I guess I'm thankful for as a rookie. But I guess, yeah, at times in NASCAR I wish, we didn't have it.
Right on. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nate. Archie, go ahead with Kyle Larson.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, Kyle. I guess, how did you find your first experience of running in traffic? Maybe how did the car behave differently to when you've just been running alone?
Yeah. So when I was able to go that faster lap or whatever, I think that was my first run on that set of tires, and there was a few cars in front of me, and I've been hearing about how the dirty areas and all that and how bad it is, and in that run I was like, man, it doesn't feel that bad. Like, it didn't feel that different from clean air, and I was wide open behind them and it was no problem. And then we did some ins and outs and got towards the end of that set of tires, and I was by myself just kind of running and building lots of understeer by myself. And we stayed out there to kind of allow Newgarden to catch me, and he ended up passing me, and I like totally lost the nose. So that was pretty crazy, kind of feeling that and all of that. But I think I could have done a better job as well, like when he passed me and timing the air and the run and all that. But still, like, once I kind of lost the nose, like, I couldn't, like, it was hard to recover from it. So it was so sensitive that, again, I don't even know if like that's real, but I would assume that's more real than me not feeling a balance change in traffic. But yeah, that's why it's just kind of hard to learn right now, like when the conditions are like this and the packs are smaller and all that. So there's still a lot left to learn. But that's what I felt from those couple runs.
I think you've spoken before as well about maybe just not knowing where you stack up against other drivers, not having a benchmark on track. How encouraged are you now after today, when you have been on track with other cars and you can see that you are very competitive with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really say because, like, I just think I got like a magic draft and laid a lap down. But so I really don't know. I don't know how to answer that. But I think I still have a lot of time to learn, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. Like, I saw Twitter was going crazy because, oh, Kyle Larson was second in first IndyCar practice with people. But, like, there's a lot of people that weren't drafting out there or didn't have, like, the draft that I had. So it's I take the credit, but it's really not a big deal either.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, Ashley, wrap up here in person with Bruce, and then we'll close her up. Go
You're
ahead.
very familiar with the guys that you race with every week in NASCAR, and you're really probably pretty familiar with the guys you race with in sprint cars. But this is a group of drivers you haven't raced with before, and how important is it to really learn their nuances and their traits and their characteristics so that you can recognize that when you're up here running for real?
Yeah, no, I think it's very important for sure. You know, like I just kind of think back to like when I started racing late model stuff. Like I had to do a lot of studying on drive. Like I literally watched no dirt late model races before I raced or got the idea to go race them. And so yeah, I had to study, and it's much easier to study a dirt race than it is a 500-mile IndyCar race or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think for me and Indy, like I'm probably just gonna have to go off of what other my teammates tell me about other drivers and all that. But I haven't really heard much about other drivers and their aggressiveness or who's really aggressive, who's crazy, who's not, who can you take advantage, who can't you, stuff like that. And I don't even know if that really translates to an oval. I think I wouldn't be surprised if guys are maybe aggressive on a road course or maybe not quite aggressive on a oval. So yeah, it'd be hard for me to watch Long Beach and be like, man, that guy's gonna be crazy at Indy. But so I don't know. I just try to listen and soak up as much of that sort of information as I can too.
But how well do you know the guys at high level and all your sprint car stuff? Because you race against them a lot.
Yeah, I know how, and I'm probably the most aggressive when it comes to sprint cars. So I know I've got that. So but on this, I probably won't be very aggressive. So, or at least not for a while. But we'll see.
All right, we good? I know you were accessible a couple times today, so appreciate that. I know these guys appreciate that, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see you back on the racetrack tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle Larson, again, scheduled time to begin tomorrow on day 2 is 10 a.m. Thanks, everyone.